All right, welcome to the new JFK Show, number 320, no, 32, I'm sorry. We've got Larry Rivera, and we're going to continue on from a previous show with the documents that have been released in 2017. So go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, tonight I guess we have a 2-for-1 gig here, Gary,
It's good pasture, huh?
Yeah, remember we were good old Ann, and
Yeah,
we
she's
did.
a
It did sort of bear a resemblance to that Oswald corpse photo.
Yeah, she's a slick bitch now.
And you guys, everybody remembers that we established in the new documents that, I also mentioned that Bill Simpich had written about this before in his book State Secrets, that she used a pseudonym of a man, Robert Riggs, and we went over some of the pages of her 201 file, and in that file we discovered how essential good pasture was, and I believe we showed, this operational chart, okay, which showed her here right below the station chief of station, Willard Curtis, also known as Win Scott, okay, and so she was,
Second in command.
She was running the shop.
That's right, and some of these operatives, were actual Mexican operatives, okay, Lee Envoy and Lee Elegant. Okay, and here's a sample of what we know of redaction, okay? And here, this is a previous version of this document, and we have here and we have here, where they obviously do not want us to know what this was about, what the identity of these people were. And again, here's Robert Riggs and Willard Curtis, Win Scott, and here you've got redaction here and here. And when we look at the actual document, non-redacted document, which I'm going to show here, okay, we see a great deal of difference. Okay, I'll go back and forth. Okay, and it's revealed here. These were all Mexican operatives who interacted directly with Chief of Station Win Scott, okay, and down here are the wiretaps of the lines. And let's go up again, because this has to do with the wiretapping of the Cuban embassy, the Soviet embassy, etc. And this shows you the entire operation. I believe in that other show we showed actual photographs of the tape decks, the installation, and I counted, my God, at least almost 30 banks of tapes, of tape machines, and these were Ampex and Roland Sachs, which were very sophisticated at the time, and not only that, but they also required a lot of electricity and an environment that required that it would not overheat, that they would not overheat, which meant that there had to be a lot of air conditioning, in these rooms, and obviously the wiretapping, to go into the wires of the telephone company. So it was a very, very sophisticated operation, Jim and Gary.
Big budget too.
That's right. Oh, absolutely. And it was financed by the CIA, the U.S. government. What the Mexicans were involved in was the transcribing, the actual grunt work, listening to the tapes. I mean, to the transmissions, the phone calls and everything, and then preparing. And there was a lot of problems, with the Mexicans. We don't have time, to go into detail on that, but suffice it to say that the projection of the reports going to Washington to Langley versus what was actually going on in Mexico City were night and day. The Mexicans were very very nasty. Okay, they were thieves. You know, they were undisciplined. Okay, so and that was something that the station, the CIA station in Mexico City, had to deal with. Now, if you look here, these are all actual Mexican, the people that were being wiretapped by the Mexican side of the deal, because this was a joint project between the U.S. and Mexico, were actual enemies of the president of Mexico at the time. And here's a sample of the data that was collected January, February, March, and then you got tapes and transcribed pages, okay, that are corresponding to those tapes. Okay, now this.
Go back, Larry. I was looking at how many they had from different sources total on the right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
you got like Russia pages 6,156, Cuba
that's right.
4,660, other tapes used 3,000, Russia again another 1,500. I'm just looking at who they were mostly focusing on.
And you know something, you know, not only did they have wiretaps at the embassy, you know, they knew that 90% of the employees at the embassy were KGB, so they would also extend that surveillance to the actual homes of those, you know, people who worked at the embassy, you know, knowing that, you know, anything that they said, you know, at work could have probably been filtered, you know, or you know, not really what they wanted to say, but then maybe, you know, yeah. So anyway, this is a report, and what I'm getting at is that when you have this legend of Lee Oswald going to the embassy and the Cuban consul and the Cuban embassy, there was such extreme surveillance that there should have been a record of some type, if not from the photographic surveillance, if not that, then of the wiretaps. Okay, but it doesn't happen. It's nowhere. You know, and you know all the excuses that we've heard, you know, over the years that the tapes were destroyed or the photographs, you know, this and that, they lost. You know, it's just, you know, a lot of.
Yeah, we got 26,000 pages and tapes. But not one. We missed that one. Just wouldn't leave it there.
That's right. So this is an actual report, and this is for September of 1963. All right, and as you can see, the target lines. You know, these are all the first page here are enemies of the president of Mexico, and the second page shows the date of the report. So it includes everything that went on there in September, okay? And the next slide here shows, these are all the telephone numbers: Cuban Embassy, Prensa Latina, you know, Soviet Embassy, Cuban Embassy. These are the actual telephone lines that were being monitored, okay? And this is the date of the report. So this should have covered September the 28th, on the day that supposedly Lee went, you know, to the Soviet embassy to try to get that transit visa through Cuba, okay, and go on, you know, back to the Soviet Union, you know, where he had defected, you know, in the late 50s. And then, so, you know, the report is very, very thorough, okay? And it tells you what they did with all the transcripts, all the tapes, what was gleaned from all of these transcripts, from all these tapes, all the information. And if you look here, it says the exploitation of the Lee envoy information, okay? What they did with all that information. We're talking about September 1963, okay? And the importance of this report, you know, cannot be understated, Jim, because this should include the days that Lee was interacting with the Soviet embassy. Okay. Now, if the CIA or the station in Mexico were really going to, put a feather in their cap, and say, wait, we knew about Lee, before this all happened, and we reported it back to you guys, but you know what? It's not in here, So, and I'm just going to give you an example of what's contained in this report, okay? And this is comical, On 2 September 1963, a Russian-speaking female contacted the Soviet embassy and asked for Svetoslav Fedorovich Kuznatov's KGB, okay? She identified herself by name as a professor from New Orleans, Gary.
Yeah.
The address
Ding,
of her
ding.
apartment and asked for a meeting. This is a lead, was promptly followed up by station investigative assets who identified the woman and learned that she was attending a philosophers conference at the University of Mexico. Okay,
Philosophers conference. Who was this?
Okay. Now, all available information was forwarded to headquarters for passing to Odenvi. Odenvi, you guys know, was the FBI. Now, notice the cryptonym, Odenvi, okay, envy, okay, because everybody knows that Hoover was envious of the CIA because Hoover thought, forever that the international espionage and monitoring, whatever that the FBI did, in the enforcement in the U.S. should have been extended, internationally. Okay, and that's I think that that's a very curious cryptonym, to call the FBI, very ironic, so to speak. Okay. Now, anyway, what we're trying to get at here is how thorough, this wiretapping and reporting, was, regarding what was going on at the Soviet embassy. Okay. Now, notice here, the liaison, the liaison between, usually was between the president of Mexico and Willard Curtis, Win Scott, but in this case, it's not. Okay, in other reports, it's the president, with Willard Curtis, who was Win Scott. But here, there were no security problems during this month. We're talking about September, okay? And personnel, Robert Riggs, who was good pasture, continued. I mean, this is all very, normal stuff that is going on, okay, to receive all the envoy tapes and transcripts from the previous day, and so there's nothing out of the ordinary going on here, okay, but, then we're supposed to believe that September the 28th, when Lee Oswald, supposedly visited the Soviet embassy, it should have been in this report. It should have, they should have said, hey, Lee Oswald, this guy, identifying himself as Lee Oswald, came on the 28th, and he called, and then he visited, and this and that, but it's not here,
This Cal Pastor doesn't miss anything.
Yeah. So, the point of all this, and here is a listing of all these, the transcripts for September of 1963, but there's nothing here that even remotely addresses Lee Oswald. Now, why am I setting this up, like this? This is the first cable that was released, okay, after the assassination, where what my opinion is, it was backdated and it was falsified. Now, look at the cable here. Are we okay? Okay. If you see here at the top, there's stuff missing here.
Yes.
And there's also stuff missing here. I'm going to show you a cable,
normal one,
the way it is supposed to be. Okay. You see this? Why am I, oops. Can you stop the recording for a minute?
Yeah, I'll pause it.
So going back to the cable, that if you look at the cable, the header here is missing, and the subject here is missing, and it's been stamped here with what appears to be you know, what do they use in offices, you know, to stamp everything?
Yeah, one of those counter thing, yeah, rubber.
Right. Yeah, for the date.
Not what ought to be on a cable.
Yeah, this is not part of the cable, Jim. Let's just put it that way. 9 October 1963.
Clear evidence of fabrication.
So, and I'm going to show you what a genuine cable looks like. And we'll go back and forth. Now, notice the top here.
Yeah.
Okay, this one, and we presented this one in that Good Pasture show the other day, remember? And I'll show you another one. Remember when we were talking about the equivalent of Northwoods, you know, with the Cuban, where they were trying to fabricate events, you know, to have the Mexicans, you know, go against the Cubans, you know, and communism in Mexico and whatever, you know. And so this is one of the main cables that they pulled out that weekend of the 22nd, the 23rd, you know, and it shows here where Lee Envoy went on October 1963, American male who spoke broken Russian, said his name was Lee Oswald, phonetic, stated he was at the Soviet embassy 28 September when he spoke with the consul. Now, bear in mind that the consul, the embassy is all bugged, wiretapped, okay? So they would have known if Lee Oswald had been there, okay? And they would have had proof of this, okay? Now, this cable, the supposed cable that were being presented here as evidence against Lee, okay, appears to have been fabricated, and not only fabricated, but I mean poorly fabricated.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the heading here is missing. You can tell that it's been obliterated, you know, so it's been whited out, you know, and over here as well. And I'll show you again, you know, the difference between what, you know, a genuine cable from 1962, you know, and then this one, okay? And this is the one where they're trying to backdate the cable to create the legend of Lee supposedly being in Mexico City, visiting the Soviet embassy, you know, trying to get into Cuba, you know, and with a transit visa, you know, and so we all know, you know, what that was all about. And then again, and they also supposedly have photos of a male American entering the Soviet embassy, you know, 35 athletic build, which we know wasn't Lee Oswald, okay? And the source here is Liempty. Liempty was the photographic surveillance project of the embassy. You know, like I mentioned before, not only were they wiretapping, you know, the telephone lines, they also had photo surveillance, you know, of the embassy from different points. And maybe we'll have a chance to look at that. But I think this is very revealing here, you know, that we're supposed to believe that this cable is authentic, you know, and I don't think it is at all, you know. And
no, it's clear it's not. Larry,
yeah.
You've nailed it.
And so I want to get away from this here quickly and go to this other image that I have here. Okay, are you able to see this?
Yeah, but it's not full screen.
Okay, yeah, but I can't. Let's see.
His slideshow.
No, this isn't a slideshow. This is a PDF. Can you see this? I'm scrolling down.
No, nothing's moving.
No.
Okay. Let me go back.
You want me to pause?
No. Okay, here. What this is here, you guys can see this now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is the actual manual of the timing mechanism of a telex, a cable machine of the early 60s, okay, that I was provided by somebody who knows a lot about this, Jim. And I was talking with Jim about this because Jim served on, on naval vessels, and we were talking about how important telex machines were because they were the only means of communication, back and forth.
The dates were crucial, so you know which order was the last order if it overrode an earlier order. Absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. And these were analog machines, okay, and the actual setting of the time for these machines was from the originating communicating machine. I worked with telex machines, in the early 80s, and I remember when you had to type the message on a tape, sort of like a ticker tape, and it would perforate this tape, and in order to save time, because you were paying for a transmission time, okay, through the telephone lines, and you would actually type the message on a ticker tape and then play that tape back, okay? And this is, and so those machines, that's the way they worked. And if you look here, right here on the screen, you'll see the month, the day, okay, the year and everything. And this was all set, at the transmitting machine. So this isn't, like today you get a timestamp automatically, digital, as from one computer to another, or phone or whatever, and, back in these days, these machines set the time, from the originating transmitting machine. So it's very possible that any finagling to have been done, with these cables, would have been extremely easy, by just, creating these cables, by changing the timestamp, the date, on the cable, and then
dial. Yeah,
and then just making that as as creating, so to speak, as making that be the actual cable. So what I want to go here, I want to go back to the slideshow, and these are what I would have to say are the real deal, the real thing. And as you can see, you've got a header, and you've got over here codes that show you, that telex, that cable went through in the proper manner. But when you go and look at that one cable that shows Lee, it's not there, and it's been removed. Now I wanted to quickly, because I promised you guys I was going to show you something new, and I wanted to go down to oops, go here. Here we go. Okay. Okay, we discovered an appointment calendar book, an agenda, okay? And it had no cover page or anything. I just found this document by happenstance, a needle in a haystack. And it covers the year of 1963. And it happens to be the appointment calendar of somebody very, very important, because it shows that this guy is meeting with the president, and he's meeting with, all kinds of operatives, from the CIA, Jim. And this was going to blow you away, okay? Because it's I'm just going to, a bonus, for what I'm going to present in only, but might as well. Now, July 19, okay? You see this here, 12:15, he's meeting with the president, okay? And there are other people at the meeting, okay, right here down right here, right underneath. Well, how did I figure out who this person was? It just so happens that other documents, in the new documents that were released, happened to address meeting with the president on July 19 at that time, okay? So here it is. Meeting with the president at 12:15, 19 July, okay? This memo documents a meeting with the president, 12:15, mentioned in the agenda, okay? McCone reviewed, and Dr. Whelan, Dr. Chamberlain, status of Soviet nuclear technology and weapons development versus U.S. developments and the effects of nuclear explosions on hardened missile sites, on cities when exploded at relatively low altitudes. And I mean, this is heavy duty stuff here, being discussed directly with the president of the United States. Okay. And
let me just say in passing, the handwriting on that calendar was very distinctive and peculiar. I'll tell you right now.
Oh, yeah.
That T there, very, very strange, Larry.
Yeah, well, it gets better.
I have paid attention to handwriting for a long time, and I'll tell you that's very, very odd.
It gets better. It gets better, okay? So this is our first clue, okay, where we're able to match a memo, okay, that talks about that meeting, describes that meeting, who was there, what, when, and where, with the entry in the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay? So then we go on to another one, and this is one that, just completely, blew my mind. No, this is October the 25th, okay? And it's got the president.
This is less than a month before the assassination.
I'm sorry?
Less than a month before the assassination.
Oh yeah, and this is one that we're going to have to be studying for a long time, because even though only maybe 105, maybe 110 days of the year are included, still there is a lot of really, really important information, in that agenda.
Look at that. You got the President, Bundy, McNamara, Bobby.
Yeah.
Vietnam. Jeez.
That's right. And guess what? Here is the memo that covers that meeting. Meeting with the President, McNamara, Attorney General, Bundy, myself, concerning South Vietnam. Okay, memo which documents that meeting. And this is a long meeting. This one really, they really go into detail on what the president wants to do with Vietnam, what the opinions of everybody involved, and I'm just, showing you, this is, heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, it's going to require a lot of analysis.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now we move on to November the 1st. Okay. And look at the meetings that this guy is having, cabinet room regarding South Vietnam, Senator Senator Russell regarding Africa, South Vietnam. Yeah, Richard Russell. We did a show on him.
Colby was the CIA director.
Dr. Wiesner, Secretary Gilpatrick, who was Deputy Defense.
This isn't Prouty, is it?
No. Now here's 2nd and 3rd of November. This is a weekend. Okay, golf at Chevy Chase. Okay, dinner, Admiral Lansdale. Would that be Lansdale?
No, he's a general, not an admiral.
Okay, Alibi Club. Okay, morning meeting. Okay, this is the 5th. Special U.S. SB Margaret Higgins. I mean, a lot of detail on what this guy was doing on a day-to-day basis. Meeting with the president, right here, Colonial Room. Okay. Oh, here's something about Cubans. Group Ray Cubans sabotage. Is that sabotage? No, yeah. It's not. Anyway, morning meeting, November the 11th. Okay. Lunch, President's Lounge. Okay. Okay, here's now we go to November the 12th. Here's a meeting with the president at 11:30.
10 days before the assassination.
That's right. Here's a countdown, you know, and it's sort of like gives you an idea of how this whole thing is starting to come together, you know, because once you start to analyze who he's meeting and when, then you're starting to put names and faces together here, you know. Fitzgerald, Helms, Shackley, Warren Shackley, here lunch, okay. Reception and made of Saudi Arabia, okay. Now here's the meeting of 11:30 with the president, and here is the memo. Now this one's a good one, Jim, because he's talking about meeting on policy relating to Cuba, okay, November the 12th, 1963, and look who's here. The creme de la creme, you know, Secretary McNamara, Secretary Rusk, Gilpatrick, Attorney General Bobby, Secretary Vance, General Taylor, Mr. Bundy, McGeorge, Secretary Johnson, McCone, Helms, Fitzgerald, Shackley. I mean, doesn't get any better than that, you know? Right here, 11:30 with the president, okay? And this is another one that goes, you know, on and on. Fitzgerald made a presentation, you know, Rusk, you know, spoke at considerable length. You know, they're talking about how the Cubans are off on their own, you know, running their own raids, you know, and sabotage, you know, and Kennedy is talking about how he wants to subdue these people, you know, and not make it so obvious, you know, that the U.S. is, you know, is supporting these people, okay? And so there are other documents that in the file that show that support this November the 12th meeting, okay? Just supporting documents. But I wanted to show you guys this because there's something very, very interesting here in the same. Look at all the documents that were destroyed, okay? And these are new documents. Vietnam, China, destroyed, okay, MB. Destroyed. Test ban, airborne cameras, and development of satellite cameras. Destroyed.
I didn't want to show how much Johnson was changing the policies of JFK.
This is right before the assassination.
Yeah, but they're still doing it.
Oh yeah, okay. Test ban treaty destroyed. Supersonic transport destroyed. Test ban treaty destroyed. DCI briefing Rockefeller on test ban treaty. Okay, U.S. atomic. I mean, a lot of stuff that has to do with atomic, you know, nuclear.
Very serious stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Pakistan trip destroyed. Here's a reservation use destroyed. Here's something regarding. How do
you know that the notes about destruction were before the assassination rather than after?
Because this is 1963. Okay, up here, you see it says 1963 at the top. Yeah.
But why could those destruction notes not have been after the assassination?
Could have been. Okay.
I think this is house cleaning, Larry.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. South Vietnam destroyed.
This is LBJ house cleaning. He is vacuuming up.
Yeah, White House for RFE fund destroyed.
JFK.
Here, Cuba, NRO overflights, cryptological services, Soviet ICBMs, monitoring Soviet missiles destroyed. Okay. South Vietnam, Soviet posture.
You'd have a treasure trove with these documents that were destroyed.
That's my point. You know, what they have done here is define history the way they want it to be.
Yes.
You know?
That's right.
South Vietnam, Soviet posture, you know, I mean, on and on and on. Oh, here's one. A French situation in general destroyed. You know, test ban treaty, South Vietnam, destroyed. I mean, really, South Vietnam, budget and manpower, destroyed. And this is
who was the author of these docs?
You're going to find out now.
Drum roll, please.
South Vietnam, here's one. Conine, destroyed. Soviet wheat shipping problem, destroyed. Okay. I mean, and right up to and beyond the assassination, okay? So to sum everything up here, November 1963, there are 16 days missing from the appointment.
Wow.
Yeah.
They've eradicated all the plans, and then the discussion afterwards on the 27th. That's really stunning, Larry.
So who does the agenda belong to?
McCone. Fascinating. Fascinating.
Obviously. Okay. Now, what is McCone doing on November the 22nd? Okay. 8:45, Dr. Whelan, Bud Whelan right here. I'm putting names and faces together. Morning meeting. Presidential board. This was a special meeting. This is a special collection of the best minds that President Kennedy used to meet with on a periodic basis. And
this was right at the time he's being assassinated. This is Eastern time. He was already being.
And he's not in the meeting, Jim. This is what is so incredible. From 10 to noon Eastern, they're running a presidential board, and he's not there. Okay. Now 12:20, and let's put things into perspective, because 12:20 in Dallas is 11:20. Okay. So this is right at the time.
In Washington is 11:20, and
in Dallas. So this is exactly the time when Air Force One is landing at Love Field, or thereabouts. When the motorcade is just starting to form and everything. Okay, so check out what's going on at 12:20. What McCone is doing? He's taking Bundy to the Pentagon for drop off. Okay,
like that.
What is he doing at 1 o'clock? At 1 o'clock, he's having lunch.
They actually thought he'd be whacked at noon, but they were running a half an hour late. So
no. I think it goes beyond that. At 1 o'clock, lunch. Klein, Helms, Kent, Kirkpatrick, and Whelan. Kent. Here's Sherman Kent, Lyman Kirkpatrick. This is right here, and Bud Whelan. They're having lunch at 1 o'clock, which is noon in Dallas, probably to establish an alibi, of where they were, right before, the hit there,
Well, see, they thought the hit was going to be at noon, Larry. That's my point. They were running a half an hour late.
True. So then at 2:30, look where he's at.
Yeah, Attorney General's office, because the president's been whacked.
And who is he seeing? Bobby.
Yeah.
Okay, this is so incredible. So at 5 o'clock.
Well, this is where Bobby said he asked McCone in such a way that he couldn't deny it.
Yeah, exactly. One of you guys did it, exactly. And look what's going on here at 5. He's meeting again with the same people, Klein, Whelan, Kirkpatrick, and Helms, that he had lunch at 1 o'clock. I mean, the chance.
That sounds like that was a core group in Washington coordinating. Okay. That's very bad.
Now, look what's going on at 7 o'clock on the day that the president has been assassinated.
For drinks. For drinks.
And dinner.
For drinks.
And dinner.
That's a fucking celebration, Larry.
Yeah.
That's disgraceful. Yeah. That is disgraceful.
Mission accomplished.
That is disgraceful.
Wow.
Stunning.
Yeah.
I had thought McCone was relatively peripheral, no longer.
On the bottom of the page, it says President Kennedy assassinated.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just summarizing here. It says here on the day that he began the day seeing Assistant Director, Scientific Intelligence, Albert Bud Whelan at 8:45. Then he took McGeorge Bundy, to the Pentagon at 12:20. Okay, and this, what Ralph was talking about with Vince Salandria, his work on precisely what happened at the Pentagon that day. Okay, and I'm here.
Go back there just one second. Just go back.
Yeah.
Finally, at 7 p.m., he met Deputy Secretary of Defense Roswell Gilpatrick for drinks and dinner. How could anyone even have an appetite under those circumstances if you're a decent American?
Yeah, the rest of the world was still crying. I mean, we're in shock.
Yeah, yeah. While the nation, yeah.
Drinks and dinner. I bet it was a big steak.
While the nation and world was still trying to understand the events of the day, he had another meeting
Right.
at 5 p.m.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, they understood.
So I think the most important things that come out of this thing are right here. Number one, he's taking Bundy to the Pentagon for drop off. Okay, this is obviously George Bundy here.
So Bundy was going to coordinate the military response, however the world react to the assassination.
And that is exactly what Vince Salandria even spoke about, and he was irate about this. Okay, and I'll let you, Jim, take it from here. What was
McGeorge Bundy doing on the day President Kennedy was dispatched? Theodore H. White, in his book, The Making of the President, 1964, tells us that the presidential party on its flight back to Washington on the afternoon of that fateful day learned that there was no conspiracy, learned of the identity of Oswald and his arrest. This was the very first announcement of Oswald as the lone assassin. In Dallas, Oswald was not even charged with assassinating the president until 1:30 a.m. Next morning, the plane landed at 5:59 p.m. on the 22nd. At that time, the district attorney of Dallas, Henry Wade, was stating that preliminary reports indicate more than one person was involved in the shooting. The electric chair is too good for the killers. Can there be any doubt that for any government taken by surprise by the assassination and legitimately seeking the truth concerning it, less than 6 hours after the time of the assassination was too soon to know there was no conspiracy? This announcement was the first, which designated Oswald as the lone assassin. Who was responsible for that announcement? That announcement came from the White House Situation Room, under whose direct control was the White House Situation Room. The Situation Room was under the personal and direct control of McGeorge Bundy.
And the timing and the chronology of Bundy's movements, now we know, and it's confirmed. This confirms Vincent Salandria's work, because this is all Vince's stuff. And I actually sent this to Vince, and he was so happy because he said, "Man, this confirms, what I had posited, so many years ago." This was, I think he did this in 1971. But anyway, McCone takes Bundy at 12:20 to the Pentagon. From there, after they find out that the deed has been done, now Bundy moves on to the White House Situation Room. Okay, so now we know exactly what he was doing and what he was involved in. At the time and that afternoon, he's already declaring Lee Oswald as the lone assassin. Okay, so I think
straight from the Situation Room, straight from McGeorge Bundy, he knew in advance Oswald was the lone assassin.
Right.
So then Mr. Bundy, this man of brains, this coordinator of intelligence for President Kennedy, had reason to know that his Situation Room's announcement of Oswald as lone assassin on the afternoon of November 27, 1963, before there was any evidence against Oswald, was premature. Make no mistake about it. Bundy, who had been in the Pentagon when the announcement of the assassination was issued, spent that fateful afternoon in the Situation Room. Jim Bishop tells how President Johnson was while on Air Force One, flying back to Washington, phoning McGeorge Bundy in the White House Situation Room every few minutes to make sure the Patsy story got out promptly without any hesitation.
That's right. So we go back, we go back to the November 22nd entry in the agenda.
Well, this was a core right here. This was a core of the dirty birds.
Absolutely.
Planning the assassination from Washington.
Absolutely. You are seeing right here names and faces, of the people.
Yep. This is historic, Larry. This is historic. What you've got here is historic.
Lyndon Johnson has never been more clear to me of being involved.
Oh, I'm not done with Lyndon yet, Gary. It's coming up now. Now, remember, this is, I have to highlight this, 7 o'clock with Roswell Gilpatrick, okay, for drinks and dinner, okay, on
That
November
means Kilpatrick had a special role here.
you know, I mean, this is so unbelievable. This is so outrageous.
A celebratory dinner, and it was just between McCone and Kilpatrick. That's really telling.
This is so outrageous here, Jim, you know.
This is truly telling.
So guess what happens on November the 26th, 1963? McCone he meets with the new President Johnson one-on-one, okay? And here it is, the entry, November the 26th, okay? Kennedy's body is, you know, I mean, still not even
cold yet.
Yeah. And, you know, these people are still, you know, meeting the people involved here, you know, even Gordon Meyer here, you know.
Yeah.
Which, you know, needs to be, you know, further investigated here.
Well, he was on Howard E. Howard Hunt's list. You know, he said the chain of command went from Johnson to Gordon Meyer to the Phillips.
Hey,
Harvey
maybe he's in those meetings of all those days that are missing from the agenda.
Yeah, I bet 100%. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right, very good, very good.
So November the 26th, okay, he's meeting at 9:30 with the president, and guess what that meeting is about? Here's the memorandum, okay, and he's you know, reviewing the president. Yeah, you know, you might want to even, I think it's worth reading the whole memo here, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
On Monday, November 25th, there was no briefing of the president, although there was a short visit with him at the state reception on Monday evening. The president then expressed regret that events of the day prevented a briefing and asked if there was any development requiring his attention. I replied there was none and would call him if any developments came to my attention. On Tuesday, the 26th, I briefed the president, reviewing all items on the checklist and the world reaction summary contained in the bulletin. Briefing and discussion on other matters consumed about 15 or 20 minutes. The president asked if our entire applicable resources had been made available to the FBI in connection with our report, which he had ordered. I replied affirmatively. Note, I should call J. Edgar concerning this. The president asked my appraisal of the situation in Vietnam. I replied I was less optimistic than was the report received from Ambassador Lodge.
Notice how early, you know, he is so concerned about Vietnam, Jim, you know, right here.
Well, see, he promised the generals, you know, get me back and I'll give you your damn war. I mean, this is something that Oliver Stone emphasized right up front.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Bundy stated the first order of business was to assist state and assign a deputy chief of mission capable of running the country team in the American official community. That would have, of course, included assassinations. Bundy recommended Mr. Sullivan, Harriman's deputy. The president plans to have a man in position not later than January 1st. McCone stated that there remained a number of individuals in Saigon who continue to be troublemakers and should be removed.
Yes.
Bundy confirmed this and stated actions were to be taken.
Probably peacemakers. Probably peacemakers, you know?
Right. Let's get rid of them. Let's give them a terminal appointment. Apparently, the president's appointment secretary will be Mr. Moyers. We should get to know him. Mr. Moyers. That's, of course, Bill Moyers.
Right. Now this one's the one that just blew.
The president noted with some considerable contempt the fact that certain people in the Department of Justice had suggested to him on Saturday that an independent investigation of the president's assassination should be conducted by a high-level group of attorneys and jurists, probably headed by Governor Dewey. President Johnson rejected this idea and heard that the identical plan was to be advanced in the lead editorial in the Washington Post. The president felt this was a deliberate plan and was exceedingly critical. He personally intervened but failed with Mr. Al Friendly and finally killed the editorial with Mrs. Graham.
And here it is.
The president, yes.
Names and faces.
The editor was going to do it, but she killed it.
LBJ begins the cover-up.
Yep.
Al
He
Friendly.
didn't want a group out of his control that might actually have concluded who was responsible, namely he himself.
Oh, well, notice that, independent investigation of the president's assassination was conducted by a high-level group of attorneys and jurists, which
idea would have had him shitting bricks.
Which obviously never happened, okay?
Not on this watch.
Governor Dewey, I figured that Phil Nelson would love this one here,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, he rejected the idea, and then he talks to Al Friendly right here, okay, about it. Al Friendly says, "To hell with you, I'm going with it, And so he goes and he talks to the owner of the Washington Post, Mrs. Graham, whose husband had committed suicide the year prior, okay, by the way. And obviously
suspicious all by itself.
Yeah, okay. So, among McCone's papers, I found this one also. I found very interesting. This is a meeting between Bobby, and the what do you call it? All the generals, the
chiefs of staff.
Yeah, chief. Yeah, right here. And here, Robert Kennedy produced a personal Bay of Pigs report. This is after the Bay of Pigs, when they were investigating, and how JFK, fired Bissell, Cabell, and Dulles actually didn't go until November of 1961. But the Attorney General was especially critical of Richard Bissell, Deputy Director for Plans, because Bissell had told the president and the operation was likely to succeed. But I thought this one was especially interesting. Robert Kennedy was also highly critical of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for spending only 20 minutes studying the planned operation before making its first report to the president endorsing the operation.
Yeah.
So
of course,
anyway,
it was just their formal. They knew what was coming. So that was.
Yeah. So anyway.
Larry, that's brilliant work. Brilliant work, my friend. I love it. I love it. Every time we get together with you about these new documents, you've got something sensational.
The information.
Have a hard time topping this.
The information is there. You just got to go and dig for it.
You're going to have a hard time topping this, Larry.
Yeah. Well, if there was ever any shadow of a doubt left about LBJ's involvement, this shattered it right here.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is all the layers, unraveling, okay, at the different operational, it's like Vince told me, he's been saying it for years, I'm not interested in who shot from where. I'm interested in the national security state and how the upper levels, the upper echelon,
We're interested in all of the above.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but
it all started in the Situation Room with LBJ and McCone.
We got to send him a copy of this show.
Yeah,
something. What's really telling here is how these people actually celebrated.
Yes.
Dinner.
Yes.
So, all right. I guess we could call it a show there, huh, fellas?
Yeah, unless Larry, we got a couple more minutes to round it out, but Larry, is there anything you'd like to say to summary overview here? I think this was sensational. Sensational.
It's, like I've been, like Vince, and I've been talking about this, we're finally putting names and faces, together, even though it's 55 years, later, 56 years later, at least now, were able to, and they couldn't control, the information, from A to Z. There's stuff there
Yes.
that if you know where to look, if you know how to assemble, put the pieces of the puzzle in the proper place, you can do it, and obviously, it's very tedious. It's very involved, but it's possible.
Larry, you're doing a brilliant job with it. My hat is off to you. This was sensational.
Thank you. I hope we get some likes.
All right, fellas. All right, this is JFK number 232. Larry Rivera rolling over to JFK community as usual. We'll see you next.
232, one for the memory books. Thank you, Larry.